Hi, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today I want to talk about how this might not work. Okay, years ago I remember seeing a Juggler. I think it was in Balboa Park in San Diego. It was just like, one of those street performers that, jugglers. Nobody ever goes to see a juggler. It's always a juggler like in a park or something like that. And, the big crowds gather around and they show the thing with the hat and all that stuff. And it was really good. Who doesn't like to see a juggler in the middle of the daytime, right? So, but I remember this guy because he did the normal juggler thing, starting off with the balls and then the knives, and then for his big grand finale, he did juggling machetes on top of like a really tall unicycle. So when he climbed up on this unicycle and he got the machetes and he showed us how sharp they were and everything, which I don't know if they were really that sharp. So he gets up onto the unicycle and he's balancing there, right? Back and forth, just keeping up. And then he looks down at the machetes and he just says, okay, this might not work, right? And then of course the crowd laughs because, of course we all know it's going to work because, because he's doing it in front of this big, crowd, and surely he's practiced it over and over and over again, and that's part of his thing. But I love the way he said this might not work. And it's one of the things that I think I like the most about being an app developer, or being kind of a solo app developer, putting stuff out there myself, is because, or myself or with my team, is because we could say that, for everything. It's like, well, this might not work, but let's try this. And we have this level of uncertainty is acceptable, right? Whereas if you're working with other people, if you're working with clients or you're working with an employer, a lot of the times they want certainty, which you just can't give, especially in new markets like this. I mean, one of the reasons I don't do ASO work, and sometimes people will call me saying, we have an app, will you do ASO for us? And I said, well, no, because I'm not really an ASO expert, and I would imagine that I'd have to deliver some results, and a lot of times it's just tweaking and massaging and that kind of stuff. I mean, there's, the big things you could do immediately. I mean, most of the time you could, if somebody asks you to do ASO for them, first of all, look at the title, look at the screenshots, look at the description, look at the keywords in iTunes, and, and just, you hit the big ones, and then you think ways you can do that looking at the stuff around them. It's pretty self-explanatory. But it's more of an art than a science, if you know what I mean. I mean, there's things you could do that just immediately improve the downloads, but there's also a lot of playing around with stuff. You're trying to think how people look, what's more appealing to the user and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of times when you're working, like I remember working for a company where I remember saying, well, we should have a blog. Why don't we just have a blog? I have my own blog. We should have a corporate blog. And the whole thing was, I think we had meetings on whether or not we should put out a blog, right? It was like meetings and discussions. I say we're contemplating putting out like a blog on the website and everything. You think it would have been, you could have done it in 10 minutes, but it's got this whole certainty. Like, can you tell us what other companies are doing it? Can you do all this kind of stuff? And even with clients, sometimes I'll say like, hey, I want to change. I'd like to change these screenshots, and they'll say, well, will they give us more downloads? And I'll say, well, I don't know. And I've actually had people say, well, Eric, I'm running a business here. I don't know is not an acceptable answer. And I said, well, I'm running a business here too, and I don't know is the only answer. I can't give you certainty on this, and which never goes over really well. But the nice thing is when you put out your own apps is you can say this might not work. And I think about all the things that we've tried over the past few years. One of these days I'll list them off for you, but like interactive ebooks, trying to market certain things to certain clients. Right now we have a website which is a technology blog called thetechsensei.com, which I've never talked about, but it's kind of one of these things where we're trying to see whether or not it works. I'm really kind of not sure whether or not it's a new revenue stream or if it's the kind of thing we're going to abandon in a month. But it's one of these things where you do it and you think, well, this might not work. And even the whole thing with an app, when I released my first app, it was, asking people what they thought. And once they find out you're putting money on it, it's like, oh, well, you're stupid to do that if you don't know for sure whether or not it's going to work. And but you don't. You have to take that risk. And again, clients call me sometimes and say, I mean, it's funny, these questions you get sometimes say, Eric, if I release an app, they don't even tell you what the app is. If I release an app, how much do you think I would be able to make each month from that app to recoup my investment? And it's like, I don't know. You might make none, you might make a little, you might make a lot, which never goes over, really well. It's but that's why it's great to do your own stuff. That's why it's great to work for yourself. That's why your own products are better than products for somebody else, because when somebody else is hiring you, they want that certainty, and a lot of times you can't give that to them. But it's those people who are willing to be uncertain are the ones that get there first. Like, you know, have you ever been stuck in traffic and then you see like a road, you think, you know, yeah, your kid's in the car with you, and you think, you see a road, you think, I'll bet if I took that road, there's like a shortcut and I could get around all this traffic, right? And then you take that road and you're right and you find an alternate route, or you're wrong and you end up in a cul-de-sac and you have to go back and everybody says, I told you so. And, you know, and everybody says, I told you so, the sign says it's that way, right? But sometimes it's that willingness to accept the uncertainty of the situation is what really puts you ahead of everybody else. And I think that's, you know, when people launch into new markets, a lot of times by the time everybody else gets there, everything's dried up. Anyway, those are just my thoughts for today. You know, this might not work. And that's it. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.